can run on for a long time, run on for a long time, run on for a long time. Sooner or later, gotta cut you down. Sooner or later, gotta cut you down. Go and tell that long-tongued liar. Go and tell that midnight rider. Tell the rambler, the gambler, the backbiter. Telling the God's gonna put you down. Telling the God's gonna cut them down. Well, my goodness gracious, let me tell you the news. My head's been wet with the midnight dew. I've been down on bended knees. I talk reality. He spoke to me with a voice so sweet. I thought I heard the shout of the angels. He called my name and my heart stood still. When he said, "Child, go do my will." Go and tell that long-tongued liar. Go and tell that midnight rider. Tell the rambler, the gambler, the backbiter. Tell him the God's gonna cut him down. Tell him the God's gonna cut him down. 'Cause you can run on for a long time, run on for a long time, run on for a long time. But sooner or later, I'll put you down. Sooner or later, I'll put you down. You can throw your rock, hide your hand, working in the dark against your fellow man. But as sure as God made black and white, what's done in the dark will be brought to the light. 'Cause you can run on for a long time, run on for a long time, run on for a long time. But sooner or later, I'll cut you down. Sooner or later, I'll cut you down. Go and tell that long-tongued liar. Go and tell the midnight rider. Tell the rambler, the gambler, the backbiter. Tell him the God's gonna cut him down. Tell him the God's gonna cut him down.
I'm the fear addicted, the danger illustrated. I'm the fire starter, twisted fire starter. And you're a fire starter, twisted fire starter. I'm a fire starter, twisted fire starter. I'm the bitch you hated, feel infatuated. I'm the pain you tasted, felt intoxicated. I'm a fire starter, a twisted fire starter. You're a fire starter, twisted fire starter. twisted places, my detonator. I'm blown in phases, twisted and made. I'm a fire start, a twisted fire start. You're a fire start, twisted fire start. I'm a fire start, twisted fire start.
The enemy is in here. It's the weakness. No desire to trust, to be loved. If you get rid of that desire and just act rationally, then you can overcome this weakness.
Welcome, everyone, to the Tori Says Show. I'm your host, Tori, and today is the 21st of July, 2021. And you know what? Everyone has a very short memory, so today we're just going to get a couple of reminders of what's really going on while also examining what they want you to focus on. So it's been a talk. In 2019, we talked about it. In 2020, we talked about it, and yet people forgot. So I think maybe the one thing that we should do is look at and just maybe go back to the basics. How's that? But before we do that, we need to perspective. So yesterday, obviously, everyone had something to say about Robin Ware is his secret name. Dude, that was low-hanging fruit. We had Robin Ware as one of Joe Biden's secret names, like minutes after we had access to those emails back in 2020. Okay, let's be fair. But I've actually collated. Not only that, I'm going to tell you what his code name was for Secret Service and what his real email was and why we should be concerned. So I'm going to put that in an article. That way my words don't get skewed, because a lot of people don't like to say it. They listen to my show for the news, but for some reason people misconstrue things, or they imagine something was said, or they just add shit to it. So I think if I actually put the evidence and the documentation and kind of say, no, here it is, maybe that won't happen. So speaking about Biden's emails, take a listen to this.
This is becoming a serious problem now for both President Biden and his son, who is under criminal investigation by the U.S. Attorney out of Delaware and likely Special Prosecutor John Durham. And if you remember, you mentioned the so-called Russian disinformation. But if you remember, candidate Joe Biden outright lied and prevaricated when he was asked point blank if he had any knowledge of his son's overseas business dealings with some of the most unsavory and corrupt governments and enterprises. And he told the US media and the American public, I have absolutely no knowledge whatsoever of anything that my son was up to. And if he was up to anything overseas, it was completely legitimate. We now know, we have evidence, overwhelming evidence, that Joe Biden himself, in at least 2 occasions, was kept abreast of what Hunter Biden was doing abroad and was trying to himself get directly involved with some of these dealings. If you recall, Tony Bobulinski, he became some sort of national name 11 days before the election when he mentioned publicly on Fox News, I believe, or one of the other channels, that he had intimate knowledge that Joe Biden was directly involved in negotiations with Hunter Biden with a corrupt Chinese energy company named CEFC, in which Joe Biden himself would have received a 10% equity share out of some sort of agreement that Hunter Biden and his corporation would have come into with this company. Nothing came about.
All right, let me explain to you something. That's not really how it went down. So basically, Tony Bobulinski was in charge of Sinahawk. Sinahawk, there's Sino Group, Sino this, Sino that, super fucking Chinese. And the deal that had happened was that another company is going to seed money into a partnership, right, that Joe Biden and Chairman Yi had together. That's basically what happened. I'll put it in writing because it's so confusing. He had so many damn business dealings being thrown in the middle. And like George Papa D said, his dad knew everything. In fact, they would reach out to his dad to say, hey, is Obama coming too? That's what's up.
From this deal except for a $5 million payout. And it just really goes to show how involved Biden was with some of these countries, these foreign dealings, and whether or not pay for play was involved here.
Well, I mean, it's really staggering. Remember, 10% for the big guy, but no one seems to care about that. You know, just taking this up to a larger 30,000-foot view,
the big guy is
a
Obama.
Macro view of what's happened here. We had a media obsessed with all things Trump. They effectively alleged that President Trump was Al Capone and the Trump organization was some type of crime syndicate that had latched itself on to the Oval Office. And meanwhile, we have a case here with Hunter Biden, who now has gone from the Parmesan cheese expert to an art connoisseur. The White House making efforts.
This art thing is pissing me off. Pissing me off. He was not a connoisseur. So pissing me off that they whitewashed that shit.
To try to conceal the people who spend the big dollars on the artwork he's now producing. This smells and looks like corruption by all accords, by any natural inclination, and yet somehow no one seems to be bothered by what's occurring in front of us.
Hunter Biden was receiving close to $80,000 a month from a corrupt Ukrainian natural gas company with
$80,000. He didn't even care. He wouldn't get out of bed for $80,000. Let's be straight. That's one, right? We're talking many. There were companies among companies. So the deal that Tony Bobulinski was in was a company that was half owned by China that would then give money to another company that was half owned by China in order to do business. And not only that, we got the Huawei chick that fucking lent money to the company that was half owned by Hunter and China. So it's like, it's a hot mess. And not only that, his Chinese companies that are super fucking Chinese. By the way, New Mexico, you've got a Chinese funded congresswoman that's going to be coming soon too. So, it's so interesting how things are whitewashed because people just take points and they talk about one certain second. It's like, nah, man, step back, show them a map and ask them this question. I think it's simpler. What country didn't the Biden crime family syndicate do business in? That's better.
No natural gas experience or corporate governance experience whatsoever. Based on his memoir, we know that Hunter Biden belonged in rehab much more so than on the board of any company, let alone one in which his father was the point man on. And now after that successful career in the energy business, he has become some sort of art aficionado in which his artwork is fetching $500,000 from anonymous buyers around the world, in which this has raised tremendous ethics concerns, including from Obama's own ethics czar. So the corruption is astonishing yet predictable, and we will see how far the media will go to continue to insulate Joe Biden from his son's unsavory behavior.
Hi. So we wouldn't have a problem with the media if the right media was doing their job, right? We wouldn't have a problem whatsoever if the right media was doing their job, okay? Nobody cares about the mainstream media. It's about us.
All right. Now, they're not going to put him on a platter for anybody. They're not even telling you what's being planned. This is why we're going to go back to school today. We're going to do some Khan Academy today. And this is going to be about Politics 101. Because I think people forget to stand back and look at all the distractions and everything's that happened. Just like this. Take a listen to this today. General Milley.
I hear what you're saying, but I'm not going to comment on any of the books. But I want you to know, and I want everyone to know, I want America to know, that the United States military is an apolitical institution. We were then, we are now. And our oath is to the Constitution, not to any individual at all. And the military did not and will not and should not ever get involved in domestic politics. We don't arbitrate elections. That's the job of the judiciary and the legislature and the American people. It is not the job of the U.S. military. We stayed out of politics. We're an apolitical institution.
Are you concerned that some of these comments that are attributed to you are pulling you more into politics than you necessarily your office should be?
Let me just make a comment here. It's really important to me that this department remain apolitical, and so we're going to do everything within our power to make sure that our troops, our leadership, both civilian and military, remain focused on the task at hand and understand that they are not a part of the political apparatus there.
All right, I want to show you this guy's face because I want you to remember this guy's face, all right? You need to remember this guy's face. For those of you that are watching, remember this dude's face, all right? Just listen to what he said. Listen.
Not a part of the political apparatus there, so we will remain apolitical.
Remember that man's face. It's going to be very important coming soon. So where should we go? We should go to what Don Lemon says about, you look like an idiot. Don Lemon reacts to Rand Paul's dust up with Fauci. I'm glad that they're showing the dust up because they think it's a win. And then when people watch it, they're like, wait a minute, what? He didn't deny it. Wait a minute, what's going on here? Take a listen to his intro.
Deniers. Senator Rand Paul, well, he tried to make Dr. Anthony Fauci into his personal punching bag today as they went head to head over the senator's bogus claims that the National Institutes of Health somehow played a role in funding research that led to the origins of the pandemic. And Dr. Fauci was definitely not having it.
Dr. Fauci, knowing that it is a crime to lie to Congress, do you wish to retract your statement of May 11th where you claimed that the NIH never funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about, quite frankly. And I want to say that officially. You do not know what you are talking about. This is a pattern that Senator Paul has been doing now at multiple hearings based on no reality. He keeps talking about gain of function. This has been evaluated multiple times by qualified people to not fall under the gain of function definition. I have not lied before Congress. I have never lied, certainly not before Congress. You are implying that what we did was responsible for the deaths of individuals. I totally resent that. And if anybody is lying here, Senator, it is you.
Oh, he was shaking. He was so pissed. Now,
What is wrong with Rand?
what is wrong with Don Lemon? Isn't he retired? Wasn't he supposed to stop working and focusing on his white husband, who isn't too white because he's acceptable? Yeah, that one. So where do we go today? Today we need to visit some very pertinent facts. But before we do, I want to show you this really nice clip about, rules for rulers. It's quite fascinating, and you'll understand why.
Want to rule? Do you see the problems in your country and know how to fix them? If only you had the power to do so. Well, you've come to the right place. But before we begin this lesson in political power, ask yourself, why don't rulers see as clearly as you, instead acting in such selfish, self-destructive, short-sighted ways? Are they stupid, these most powerful people in the world, or is it something else? The throne looks omnipotent from afar, but it is not as it seems. Take the throne to act, and the throne acts upon you. Accept that or turn back now before we discuss the rules for rulers. No matter how bright the rays of any sun king, no man rules alone. A king can't build roads alone, can't enforce laws alone, can't defend the nation or himself alone. The power of a king is not to act, but to get others to act on his behalf, using the treasure in his vaults. A king needs an army and someone to run it, treasure and someone to collect it, law and someone to enforce it. The individuals needed to make the necessary things happen are the king's keys to power. All the changes you wish to make are but thoughts in your head if the keys will not follow your commands. In a dictatorship where might makes right, the number of keys to power is small, perhaps only a dozen generals, bureaucrats, and regional leaders. Sway them to your side and the power to rule is yours, but never forget, displease them and they will replace you. Now, all countries lie on a spectrum from those where the ruler needs few key supporters to those where the ruler needs many. This foundation of power is why countries are different. Yet many keys or few, the rules are the same. First, get the key supporters on your side. With them, you have the power to act. You have everything. Without them, you have nothing. Now, in order to keep those keys to power, you must, second, control the treasure. You must make sure your treasure is raised and distributed to you for all your hard work and to the keys needed to keep your position. This is your true work as a ruler, figuring out how best to raise and distribute resources so as not to topple the house of cards upon which your throne sits. Now you, aspiring benevolent dictator, may want to help your citizens, but your control of the treasure is what attracts rivals. So you must keep those keys loyal. But there's only so much treasure in your vaults, so much wealth your kingdom produces. So beware. Every bit of treasure spent on citizens is treasure not spent on loyalty. Thus, doing the right thing, spending the wealth of the nation on the citizens of the nation, hands a tool of power acquisition to your rivals. Treasure poured into roads and universities and hospitals is treasure a rival can promise to key supporters if only they switch sides. Benevolent dictators can spend their take on the citizens, but the keys must get their rewards, for even if you have gathered the most loyal, angelic supporters, they have the same problem as you, just one level down. Being a key to power is a position of power. They too must watch out for rivals from below or above. Thus, the treasure they get must also be spent to maintain their position. The loyal and dim may stay by your side no matter what, but smart key supporters will always watch the balance of power, ready to change allegiance if you look to be the loser in a shifting web of alliances. In countries where the keys are few, the rewards are great, and when violence rules, the most ruthless are attracted, and angels that build good works will lose to devils that don't. So buy all the loyalty you can, because loyalty in dictatorial organizations of all kinds is everything. For the ruler, anyway. Thus, the dictatorship exposed, a king who needs his court to raise the treasure to keep the court loyal and keep raising the treasure. This is the self-sustaining core of power. All outside is secondary. Now, a king with many key supporters has real problems. Not just their expense, but also their competing needs and rivalries are difficult to balance. The more complicated the social and financial web between them all, the more able a rival is to sway a critical mass. The more key supporters a ruler has on average, the shorter their reign. Which brings us to the third rule for rulers: minimize key supporters. If a key in your court becomes unnecessary, his skills no longer required, you must kick him out. After a successful coup, the new dictator will purge some of those who helped him come to power while working with the underlings of the previous dictator, which from the outside seems a terrible idea. Why abandon your fellow revolutionaries? Are the old dictator's supporters not a danger? But the keys necessary to gain power are not the same as those needed to keep it. Having someone on the payroll who was vital in the past but useless now is the same as spending money on the citizens. Treasure wasted on the irrelevant. And by definition, a dictator that pulls off a coup has promised greater treasure to those switching sides. The size of the vault has not changed, so the treasure must be split among fewer. A dictator that sways the right keys, takes control of the treasure, cuts unnecessary spending, kills unnecessary keys, will have a long and successful career. Seeing the structure unveiled, you might be excited to get started and control a country to the benefit of you and your cronies, or you might be exhausted, wishing to do good but seeing the structural difficulties. Now turn to democracy for salvation. So let us discuss rulers as representatives. You again might have grand dreams of the utopia you wish to build, but no man rules alone, and never more so than in democracy. Presidents and prime ministers must negotiate with their senates and parliaments and vice versa, and they all have their own key supporters to manage. In a well-designed democracy, power is fractured among many and is taken not with force, but with words, meaning you must get thousands or millions of citizens to, if not like you on election day, at least like you better than the alternative. With so many voters and such fractured power, it's impossible to, as a dictator would, follow these rules and buy loyalty. Or is it? Of course not. Don't think of citizens as individuals with their individual desires, but instead as divided into blocks. The elderly or homeowners or business